borders, it's deeper than the expanded credit. It can ruin everything. Romney, who has proposed his some child allowance legislation, is in some ways more generous than the expanded child tax credit that was implemented by the American Rescue Plan. It was echoed that sentiment, indicating that the increase in child poverty was to be expected. Democrats also continue to attempt to leverage reimplementation of the expanded credit in exchange for extending a popular research and development credit, although the strategy has not yet succeeded. Democrats insist that there is room for bipartisanship on the issue. After all, Republican tax cuts in the Job Acts of 2017 expanded the amount for this, but Republicans have pointed to the cost of the expanded credit, although some experts argue the returns will be 10 times the price tag. Big news. There is new relief coming for you. There's a new list of states providing direct financial relief to families and senators and seniors across the country. The relief is set to be arriving in multiple different ways. There are new tax refund checks available in some states. As homeowners brace for big property tax bills, a bipartisan group of state lawmakers are launching an effort to keep those taxes for older people in Ohio. It's called the 70 Under 70 Plan, and it would freeze property taxes at the current levels for people older than 70, whose income is less than 70 grand. Eligible seniors must also own their homes for at least 10 years, and some representatives have said it is the best ability to plan and keep their home. Now, the move comes as people and property values hit historic highs in counties across the world. And while that doesn't translate into 30-40% increase in property taxes, well, people are seeing significant increases in their bills. Some representatives are sponsoring a bill, and they say now is the moment for people to not only help its seniors and help the seniors stay in their homes. Now, in November, Idaho homeowners will also know how much of a tax break they'll get. The savings will be calculated for each individual taxpayer and appear on the property tax notice, which counties send to homeowners in November. Alex Dornfest, the Idaho State Tax Commission tax policy chief, crunched numbers using 2022 property tax totals. The money for homeowners' property tax relief was 17%, the total of all homeowners' property taxes. The number will change because levy rates will have gone up or down in many of the state's 1,000 plus taxing districts. But Dornfest's estimated percentage is similar to estimated cuts of 10% to 20% that Governor Brad Little shared as they promote.
Thank you so much, Chairman Stauber. And thank you to our witnesses for joining us this morning to discuss the U.S. Geological Survey's critical minerals list. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Recognizing the foundational role many minerals play in our economy, Congress has recently tasked USGS with creating and regularly updating a list of critical minerals. These are minerals that are deemed essential to U.S. economic or national security and are vulnerable to supply chain disruption. These critical minerals will play a crucial role in our clean energy transition. For example, we use lithium, cobalt, and nickel, among many other minerals, in batteries for electric vehicles, in wind turbines, and solar panels, all renewable energy technologies that will help us end our reliance on polluting fossil fuels and stave off the worst effects of the climate crisis. Critical minerals will be especially important for the transition of our transportation sector. Transportation is currently the #1 source of carbon emissions in the United States, which makes this sector crucial to decarbonizing quickly. An important aspect of electrified transportation is demand for minerals, and the most non-replaceable critical mineral for electric vehicle batteries.
Voted House bills. Now, this is the state of Washington, and they provided a tax refund up to $1,200 for certain eligible taxpayers. The Working Families Tax Credit will make payments up to $1,200 to people who are eligible for these payments. Even the Georgia governor is again suspending state tax on gas and diesel, declaring a legal emergency over high prices. He has signed the executive order this morning in the suspension of taxes at 32 cents a gallon. Now, Georgia's government gave up an estimated $1 billion during an early suspension over 10 months to help the people out. Georgia can easily proceed to go cash now, which is used for mainly board building, but not only is the rainy day account full, but the roughly $10 billion is actually surplus cash in state accounts. The state is likely to run another multi-billion-dollar surplus in a budget year, unless revenues fall shortly. But the gas tax rebate lets Kemp instead pivot to talking about things like his tax cut efforts. He says they're an attempt to help Georgia residents fight inflation and stay in their homes.
Would you consider, or are you guys discussing any possible rules changes either on a bipartisan basis or unilaterally as Democrats to deal with the Tuberville?
Look, the bottom line is this is a Republican problem. Don't pawn it off on us. It was created by Tuberville solely himself. And it's up to the Republicans to put pressure on them to back off, plain and simple. Now, we're already seeing that pressure mount. Last week, one of the major Republican candidates for Senate, Nikki Haley, said that Tuberville ought to back off. And just a few days ago, one of the most powerful and influential congressmen in the House, Congressman Call, said the same thing.
Bad news. The federal government has announced that the poverty rate in the United States has doubled. Democratic lawmakers are now pushing to restore the new tax credits. This would provide automatic deposits for thousands of dollars. Now, the U.S. Census Bureau released new data this week showing child poverty doubling in 2022. The supplemental poverty measure showed that child poverty rate rose from 5% to 22% in 2022. The increase in child poverty is attributed to a number of factors, including the inflation and the expiration of crisis-era relief programs. These programs helped with the widespread job loss and economic hardship, but the expiration of these crisis-era programs has contributed to decreases and increases in poverty. Even some Democratic representatives have said there is no modern policy that has been successfully expanded. Now, millions of people were lifted out of poverty, but hunger was cut by 20%. Now, families use this extra money to pay for housing, food, childcare, and so they can get to work, and other basic essentials for everyday life. Moreover, for every $1 invested, the child tax credit provided $8 in social and economic benefits. Even Representative DeLauro said that the monthly child tax credit was a huge success and the best solution to reduce child poverty. She said it is time to bring it back and provide middle-class and working-class families with the permanent economic security they deserve. Democrats in the Biden administration are at this again, trying to renew the expanded child tax credit. The state of Connecticut's own temporary child tax credit expired in 2022 as well, and the program, which was not renewed as part of the budget negotiations, allowed eligible families to receive tax rebates of $250 per child for up to 3 children. Advocates for the program are hoping the new data inspires its renewal next year. Even New Jersey Senator Cory Booker says Congress allowed child poverty to spike. Even people are saying that there's no options for tackling this. Opponents say entitlement programs like the expanded child tax credit are too costly and contribute too much to the ballooning national debt. But Booker argues that the price tag of not acting is even greater. Poor Americans primarily use the monthly child tax credit for basic necessities like groceries, utilities, and rent. Republican lawmakers unilaterally opposed expanding the credit in the first place and then extending it to conservative Joe Manchin, who voted for the American Rescue Plan. He also opposed expanding and extending the credit. When congressional Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a significant climate tax policy bill, it was not even crafted for Manchin. It did not include the expanded child tax credit. The senator has appeared largely unfazed by the new census data on child poverty. Even to reporters, it's deeper than the expanded credit. It can ruin everything.
Corruption and wholesale purchase of members of the Supreme Court. And I also find it amusing that we just heard from the Republican side, why do we want to talk about this? Because